are at EMO's Creative Studio, and here we are in part 2 of how to make a quilt as you go block and what items you can make with your quilt as you go block. So if you remember in part 1, I showed you the quilt that I made, a quilt as you go block. This is 13.5 inches square, and it was made with various pieces of fabric, different widths. And this is the quilt as you go block that we made together in part 1. Again, this is using pieces of fabric from my stash, scraps from my stash in various widths of fabric. Now, with this quilt as you go block, I already have chosen my zipper, the piece of fabric that I'm going to be using for the tab, and the fabric that I'm going to be using to bind the inside seams, as well as my label. And I have it all together in a clip. I also have the other quilt as you go block that I showed you that's rectangular, and I am going to make this into a pouch, but I'm going to go ahead and make this into a pouch off camera so that you can see what it looks like completed. As I mentioned in part 1, this particular quilt block I'm going to go ahead and cut down to 13.5 to about 9.5, 10 inches, and I'm going to make a rectangular table runner for my small kitchen table. And I have some binding right here that I'm going to quickly show you how to put onto the quilt, my quilt. I wanted to show you a secondary item that I made with a quilt as you go pattern block. This particular pattern is called Log Cabin. This is a more detailed quilt as you go. There's a lot of sewing and a lot of top stitching that you have to do. I made this again to sell at in my online store. This one unfortunately does not have a finished edge. The finished edge that is in here is zigzag. I still don't like the way it looks because you can see all the little threads on the end. I may revamp this and find some yellow coordinating fabric and then just put the finishing edge to it. But this particular pouch has a strap to make it a wristlet, the closing zipper on the top. It's a little bit bigger than the one that I had shown you in the previous video with the tab on the side and the zipper. This is an actual pouch that could be used for all sorts of things. I also want to show you or throw in a picture of a quilt that I made. It's a quilt that is made in the quilt as you go manner, but instead of individual blocks, I did it in rows. Let me show you that quilt right now. Now this is my quilt topper for a queen size bed, and this is a quilt as you go, but instead of doing it individual blocks, what I did was I put them together a row at a time. I did a 4-patch. I did a 4-patch right here, and I added it to a single block. I believe these are 6 or 7 inches long, square. I did the 4-patch right here, and then I sewed the X in the middle, and then I connected them side by side using a 4-patch solid, 4-patch solid, 4-patch. Then what I did was I took my backing fabric, as you can see right here, and I backed each row, as you can see right here, and then I sewed them together. If you're interested in knowing how to do this, I can do a quick video tutorial to make a table runner to show you how to do this quilt as you go using by rows, right? Quilt as you go using rows instead of blocks. So let's get on to our project. So I have my items here to make a pouch. Again, this is the quilt that we made in part 1. This is a quilt as you go diagonal with the fabric going in diagonally, solid back with batting in the center, as you can see here. This particular quilt as you go block is 10 inches square, and I'm going to be making a pouch out of this particular block. Included in my items is my label that I want to place into my pouch, and I'll show you how to do that. I've got my zipper right here. I've got my little piece of fabric that I'm going to be using for the tab that I'll be placing on the same side as where the zipper starts. And then I have my little piece of fabric right here that I'm going to be using to finish off the inside seam. So the first thing I want to do is I want to place my zipper. I've decided that I am going to make my pouch close in the center. I'm going to make a center closing pouch. Now, because the strips are all of different measurements, you're not going to find that it measures up or equals out or gets together equally in the middle, no matter if you put it in that direction or if you put it in this direction. All you need to know is that your ends right here, need to be equal when it comes to sewing. So I am going to start with my pouch in this direction. First thing I'm going to do is, I know usually zippers, they like to start the zipper pull from the right side of the pouch because most people are right. And because I'm going to put a tab on the end, like I have on this one, I'm going to make my zipper start off on the right side or on the left side, but I'm going to work with it on the right side. This is a 14-inch zipper, and yes, I'm going to be wasting some zipper, but that's good because I bought the zipper. You can find the zippers online at a lot of these wholesale zipper places. So let's see if I can get this closer so you can see what's going on here. Get it closer, there you go. Take it up just a little. What I want to do is I want to place my zipper. I want my zipper to end up like this. So I want to place my zipper right sides together, meaning the right side of my block is going to be facing me, and the zipper, the right side of the zipper teeth, are going to be facing the right side of the block. My main intent is, I want to make sure that I am not putting the edge of the block like this to the edge of the zipper. There has to be a little room because you want to hide the raw edges of this block. So what I do, it's a lot of tossing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm going to grab my pins, and I am going to pin the opposite side of where I'm going to be sewing. So when I'm sewing this item, I'm going to be sewing probably down around this line, but when we get to the machine, you'll see. I want to make sure again that I'm placing the zipper with the raw edges of the block, maybe an 1/8, a 1/16 of an inch away from the edge. You do not want to have them even because, and you'll understand it more when we go through the process, because when you turn your zipper, when you fold your zipper out, it's going to come out like this, and then we're going to top stitch it. And when you top stitch it, there is no raw edge showing, and it makes it look very professional. Again, even if you're not selling these to make money or selling your items, you still want to have a professional looking item that you have made. So here you go. You can see right here, let's see, you can see right here that there's just a little bit edge of the tape, zipper tape showing. Get it closer and you can see it. You see how the little edge of the zipper tape is showing right there? Right there. Right there. Right there. You'll have to adjust it when you're sewing to make sure that you don't have any raw edges hanging out. All right, let's move over to the sewing machine. As you can see, I've already placed my project under the zipper, under the presser foot. And this particular presser foot is a skinny presser foot. Now, if I was working with a thicker presser foot, such as this one, I would have to switch over to my zipper foot so that I'm not sewing over the zipper coil. but because I'm lucky enough that my machine has this little foot, I'm not going to change over. I am going to start sewing off of my block. I like to hold the ends of my threads so that they don't bunch up underneath my project. I'm going to start off slow, and I'm going to try to focus my mind or my eye on this line right here and make sure that my needle is following this line. Let's see if I can focus it so that you can see what line I'm talking about. Sorry. I am talking about this line right here, if you could see it. And I'm going to follow this line because I want a straight stitch. I don't want a crooked or funny stitch. I'm going to sew on the slower side because I want to make sure I make a straight line. Again, I'm holding my threads so they don't bunch up at the bottom. After the first 2-3 stitches, I let go. And now I'm going to pay attention to where I'm sewing. Again, my foot is not hitting the coils of the zipper. And I'm keeping my eye trained onto this line, which I'm using this opening on the foot as a guide marker. I don't like to put pins on this side because then I have to stop and pull them out, and I generally get the item all crooked. I have crooked sewing on the item. That's why I pin on this side. I do not backstitch when I'm sewing a zipper on, because what's going to happen is when I sew my finished seam, I will have secured the stitching of the zipper foot. So we're now at the ironing table. I want to take the pins out that I put in and sewed, and you can see that we have a very nicely sewn edge right here. Now, of course, wasn't really paying attention very well, and you can see that there is some of the zipper tape, the raw edges over the zipper tape, but we'll take our scissors and fix that. What I want to do is I want to press my zipper to the other side so that when I top stitch, it'll be easier for me to top stitch. Now, I buy a better quality zipper, so I don't have to worry about the zipper coil melting. Even though I don't keep my iron on my zipper for a long time, I do give it a shot of steam. And you can see here, once you press it, you have a very nicely pressed zipper. Quick shot right there. So I went ahead and I used a pair of scissors that I have several pairs of scissors. People have given me scissors. I've gotten scissors with coupons, and these scissors were perfect to cut. These are Fiskars. They're side scissors, and they were very good. It was a very good selection for me to use these scissors to cut this little piece of raw edge of my block off. Now, with my zipper tape ironed open or ironed out, you can see that when I place my when I'm going to place my top stitch, I am not going to have any raw edges of the block showing. So as you can see, I've already got my project under the presser foot, and I'm going to line up the left side of my presser foot to the left side or left edge of the zipper tape because I want to have a straight line. It's easier for me to make the straight line sewing this way rather than sewing in this direction and trying to make a straight line this way. And you'll see what I'm talking about when I'm done sewing. So again, I hold the threads, I hold my threads, and I start my machine on the slow side. Give it 1-2 stitches. I don't back stitch because when I'm stitching the seam closed, it will secure my stitches. As you can see, I'm paying attention to make sure that the zipper tape follows the edge of my zipper foot. I'm not sewing fast. I want to make sure that I have a nice looking professional type of sewing project. Sorry, I'm talking slow because I'm paying attention to the sewing. And we are almost Done. And we're off the block. Raise my needle, pull my item out, cut it, and let me show you what it looks like. There's the top stitching. It's as even as I can get it. It's still on the fabric. It's nice. It looks professional. Okay, as you can see, I have my item. My zipper has been top stitched. So now I want to complete inserting the zipper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my block and I'm going to fold it with the outside facing me. I'm going to flip it over and I want to do the same thing. I want to pin my zipper in place. Again, it's a lot of flipping of the fabric or your project to make sure that you got your zipper in place. Again, I'm going to pin on the opposite side because I don't want to be pulling pins as I'm sewing. Go like this. You use as many pins as necessary to make sure that your zipper is not going to move when you are sewing it. Here we go. Put another pin in. Probably will use one more pin. You try to make sure that your edges match up on the side here. There may come a time that your block is off just a little, and I think this block is off just a little because you see that this edge is the bottom edge is not equal to the top edge, but that will be taken care of when we are sewing the seam because you're going to pick one or the other to follow to make a straight seam. Okay, this is all pinned, and now we're ready to go to the machine. We're at the machine and we're ready to sew. It's okay that the zipper is not open yet. We'll do that when we have to top stitch it. Again, I want to start off outside of my block. So I'm going to try to equal it up to this line right here. I'll hold my threads and I'll start sewing using this as a guide with this line. Now I'm feeling a little bit brave, so I'm going to make my machine run a little bit faster. Paying attention to make sure that I'm trying to go as straight as possible to sew the zipper in. Okay, I'm done. Raise my needle, lift up my presser foot, cut my thread. Okay, I've taken my pins out and you see that it's all sewn. I've got the zipper inserted. Now I want to iron it so that I can put the top stitching. At this point, you now can open up your zipper because you're going to have to do some flipping around to make sure that you get this ironed in the proper position. I'll put it inside out. I want to make sure that my raw edges aren't showing, but oops, I see some raw edges showing beyond the tape, so I'm going to go ahead and try to cut this on camera so that you can see how easy it is to cut using your scissors. Making sure that you don't cut your zipper tape because that's going to mess up everything. Yep, it takes a little time sometimes if you want something to be perfected and look really nice and not sloppy looking like you just threw it together. Alright, let's see if I need to cut anything else out. Yes, I do have to cut this. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to cut just a bit more because I want it to look professional looking. Snip, 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 snip. Yes, this is going to turn out very nice. All right. I think we're okay with the rest. All right, we want to turn over our zipper like this. The smaller the pouch, the more fighting you have to do with it to get it into its place. Take your iron and just run it across very quickly, like this. And then we'll turn it over and we'll iron it yet again. Really quick. Just a couple of shots of steam and there you go. Now I'm ready to go to my machine and top stitch. So let's move over to the machine. Okay, we're at the sewing machine and I've got it set up. I'm going to sew it again. I'm going to make sure that I'm making sure that I have the edge of the zipper tape down, and instead of following the edge over here, I have an imaginary line. I actually have a little black line right here. It's not imaginary. That I'm going to follow. I'm going to sew very slow to make sure that I get a straight line for a top stitch. So let's get started here. The intent of top stitching is to make sure that I hide the raw edges and that the zipper tape isn't flapping around all over the place. Now I've put in enough zippers that I don't have to have pins to hold down the zipper as I'm sewing. I just got to make sure that I sew on the very slow side. And concentration is what you need to have, especially if you're a new sewer. You want to make sure that you get as straight as line as possible, and if you're going to be selling the items that you're making, you want to make sure that they look professional and not thrown together haphazardly. Alright, we're almost done here. Remember not to backstitch. Alright, let's move over to the cutting board. Alright, look at it, came out very nice, a beautiful top stitch. So let me put this together and close up the zipper so you can see what it looks like with the zipper inserted. Very nice looking. Let me back it up a little so you can see the whole entire thing. As you can see here, we've got the edges that we're going to have to take care of, and we've got the zipper. And on the other side, edges that we have to take care of, and the zipper. Really nice looking. It turned out really well. As I told you before, I was planning on making this a center zipper pouch, but we can also make it a pouch that zips up towards the top. So I think I'm going to change my mind and I'm going to put it in this manner. Instead of a center zipper, I'm going to put the zipper towards the top. Before we do that, we need to place our label. So I want to place my label into my pouch. And like I said, I've decided I'm going to put the zipper at the top. I want to place my label about around this area. So I don't sew it in. I use a permanent fabric adhesive. This one is called, oh, I don't think you can see it. This is Aleene's Fabric Fusion. Don't use a lot of it because it will gump up everything, and you just need little dots. Now I usually use a cardboard to get the dots going, and then I just put little dots all the way around the edge of my label. I don't want to soak it through because it will look like it's soaked through. To make it permanent, I need to place my hot iron, not with the steam, but without steam. So let me make sure I got enough glue on here. This can be used as a temporary tacky item as well. Oh, I see there's some spots I missed. And to make it temporary, you don't use the iron, you just place your label or your item down onto your fabric and press with your fingers. I want it to be permanent, so I'm going to place it onto my item, and then I'm going to put a hot iron to it. I want to put the label down with the sticky down and put my hot iron. I'm not going to run it back and forth. I'm just going to place my hot iron onto the label. And it warms up the glue and it makes it a permanent fixture. Let it cool off. And we'll move on to the next step. So what I want to do is I want to give it a quick press. Just put an ironed fold into it. And I'm going to put it off to the side. What I'm going to work on next is the tab that I'm going to put on the side. This is a little piece of fabric. It is 4 inches by 3 inches. I'm going to fold it in half. Give it a quick press. Open it up. Fold the edges inside. Give it a quick press. Shot of steam. And then I'm going to fold it again. Kind of hot, sorry. Kind of hot. Fold it. Quick press. Make sure I don't have any wrinkles or folds in it. And then I'm going to take it to the machine and I'm going to sew it all the way around. And I'll be right back. So I have my item sewn. And what I did is I took a pair of pinking shears and I cut the edges off to give it a nice finished look, to make it look like it was pinked. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half. I'm going to pull my pouch over, and on the other side with the zipper facing down, I'm going to place my tab the same end as where the zipper pull is. So it's going to be on this side on the back. I'm going to go ahead and pin it right in the middle of the zipper, where the zipper area is, with the pinked edges on the outside of the raw edges where the seam is, and I'm going to pin away from the edge as much as possible, because I find that sometimes pins distort what you're doing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's widen the shot a little. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the zipper and I'm going to turn this inside out. You see where my fold line is? That's going to give me the idea of where I'm going to fold this. So I'll fold it up like this, and then I'll fold it up like this. Turn my zipper around. I want my zipper to be partially closed because I don't want to cut off the zipper part, the zipper pull, and then have a difficult time at trying to get the zipper pull back in because I cut it off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that this on top is even as much as possible, like this. I'm not going to use pins. Like I said, pins to me distort. So I'm going to go ahead and use my quilt clips, and I'm going to quilt clip the edges, making sure that they're as even as possible. I have 4 placed on this side, and I'm only going to clip one side at a time. So what I want to do is I'm going to sew this side first, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. I still leave the extension of the zipper out this way. This is how it looks on the back side. I want to use an actual 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. I'm not going to use the side of the foot. I'm going to actually use this line. So I'm going to remove my first clip. I have my needle in the down position. I have my project butt up to the needle. Put my presser foot down. Here I'm going to back stitch. I'm going to take a couple of stitches forward, holding onto my thread, and then I'm going to back stitch because I want to secure that stitching. Now you see I'm going slow. Now I'm going to be pulling out another clip, and I'm going to go over the zipper. Now the trick here to secure the zipper is you want to back stitch on it at least a couple of times. So this is my first pass. Going down the second pass. Back stitch the second time. Trying to make sure that you keep your stitching even as possible. And it's going to pass over one more time. Now I can make the machine go quicker. Making sure I'm following this 1/4 inch line right here. Back stitch at the end. And stop. Raise my presser foot. Cut off as much thread as possible. On this side, do the same thing. Cut off the thread. And let's go to the table so we can see how this looks. So now we've completed stitching one side. You can see that I stitched back and forth 2 times. I went once, back stitch once, twice, back stitch twice, and then sewed it a 3rd time, and it went all the way down. So now I'm confident that I can take my pinking shears and cut my zipper off. Sometimes it's a little difficult because you get to the coil. And there you go. Now you have a nicely finished edge there. Now we're going to do the other edge. Now we're going to be a little bit more careful because we've got a tab on one side that you can see that's in the inside right there. You want to make sure that your needle is not anywhere near where you're going to be sewing. You want to make sure that you have the same amount of fabric fold as this side. You can measure it if you want, but I'm pretty good with the eye, so I'll just move it over. Again, I will take my quilting clips and I'll clip it, and I will keep the zipper open because once this is sewn there will be no way to turn it inside out if the zipper is closed. So the zipper needs to remain open the way it is. Put another clip here, and I'll insert or put on a 4th clip right here. So this is how it's going to look. You see the zipper, the 2 zipper tapes, once it's sewn, will be nice and close enough so that the zipper will close and it won't look funny. So let's move over to the machine. Again, your needle is in the down position. You remove the first clip. Again, I'm going to be using the 1/4 inch marking right here. Butt my fabric up to the needle, place my presser foot down, and start my machine very slowly, holding onto my threads. Let go of my threads, and now I'm going to back stitch to secure the edge of the corner. I'm going to go ahead and sew a little bit quicker. I'm going to pull out the clip, pull out the clip. Now I'm going to stop, and I want to make sure that I have the zipper right here. I'm going to pull out the last clip. I'm going to make sure that my zipper is in place so that I can go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Alright, here we go. Don't be afraid to sew over the zipper. Nothing's going to happen. This is 1. Make sure you stay on the same sewing line. That's 2, 3, Oops, got stuck on the coil. So I'll just pick it up just a little, move it, and continue sewing. And this is the last pass. Continue sewing, back stitch the corner, stop my machine now. Lift my presser foot, cut the threads, and let's move over to the table. So now we're at the table. You see that it's a little separated right here, but that's still okay because the zipper will close. I am going to cut off the edge of the zipper tape, what's hanging out. Came out really nice, a little crooked. Let me see if I can cut it one more time and make it a little bit better. Alright, there you go. I've cut off the edges of my zipper. Now what I want to do, most people will leave their sewing as is, but again, because I want it to look professional, I'm going to end cap it, or I'm going to put binding on it to cover it up so it looks kind of professional and you don't have all these little strings hanging out all over the place. Now here's a piece of fabric that I'm going to use to make the binding for the edges of my pouch. Let's get this stuff out of the way. Let's get the ironing board out of the way, and I want to cut this a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and trim it up to make it square or even. I'm going to use my ruler, matching up the dark line to the fold, which makes a natural line. Because this is a scrap piece of fabric, I don't really mind if I take off a little bit more than I should. So I'll take that off. I want to give myself 2 inches, so I'm going to line it up at the 2-inch mark. Let's put it up here so you can see. I'm going to line it. Each box is worth 1 inch, so I'm going to line it up to the line right here. And I'm going to make sure that this edge is on this line. That this edge is on this line right here. Make it pretty even so I don't have a crooked piece of fabric. Take a dark line, match to the fold at the bottom. Bring it up to that second square box. 1, 2, that's 2 inches. Open up my cutting wheel and slice across. Put it to the side. Now I know I have enough fabric to do each end because this fabric was doubled over. So what I want to do is the same premise as I did with the folding of the fabric. As you can see, this is the back side, wrong side, and this is the right side. So I want to use this as my outside, for my outside. I'm going to fold it in half here, iron it, and then I'm going to fold it again and iron it. I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I'll come back to you in a moment. Now I have my binding already made. So I want to measure the approximate size of the edge from one edge to the other of the sewn part of my pouch. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches long. So I want to cut my binding about 5.5 inches long, because I want to fold in the ends. So I'll cut it like that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's approximated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's put it right here. And we want to just slice it up there. There you go. And now we've got 2 pieces that we're going to place onto the edge of the binding, or the sewn edge, because you want to have it look professional. If you have a machine that has a decorative stitch, you can zigzag this binding on. Otherwise, you could use a straight stitch. I'm going to use a straight stitch because my machine does not have a decorative binding on it. Okay. So I want to fold in the edges. thusly, like this. I want to get as close as possible. I don't want to have any raw edges hanging out. So I'm going to look at, it's going to look like this. I'm going to take a clip and clip it. I want to make sure that when I'm sewing this on, that I'm going to catch both sides of the binding. Because I'm not working with see-through fabric, or I don't have a mirror on the bottom, I'm going to have to trust that my pinning or my clipping here is going to be adequate. So let me continue placing my clips. I want to fold this edge over as well. And put another clip in, and then we're going to go to the machine. Now I have my binding on. You see that I have my clips. I'm going to butt my fabric up to the needle that's in the down position, and I'm going to use this side, or the left side of my needle, my foot, as the guide to make sure that I get as straight line as possible. I'm going to hold on to the threads again. I'm going to start the machine slowly, a couple of stitches, and I'm going to back stitch because I want to make sure that this stays secured. Go a little bit faster. And we're sewing to make sure everything is in place. We're almost at the end, and I'm going to back stitch to secure the threads. And we stop, and the needle is in the down position. Now we're going to go back to the table. And now this is my finished edge. It's covering the raw edges of the seam that I sewed together. I'm going to take my little snips, and I'm going to get rid of all the little threads that I see on this side. And I'm going to get rid of all the little threads that I see on this side. Because I back stitched it, I can make sure that I cut them all to the end. You can see that it captured in the front and it captured in the back. And if you go like this, you're not going to really see any raw edges. You might see some thread, the stitch marks, but you're not going to see any raw edges. So we're going to take the other side. We're going to do the other side, but I'm going to do it off camera, and I'll come back and show you what it looks like. Now I've completed the second side of my pouch, and my stitching was captured both edges on either side. So now let's turn this bad boy over, open the zipper up all the way, and let's push the corners through so we can see what our finished project looks like. And push it through. Do it gently, don't force it. Fold it over, fold it over, fold it over. Now we can push our corners through. Push our corners through. Let's do this side. I use my fingernail, fingernail. Let's zip it close, and now you have a completed project. Now I want to push the corners through a little bit better, so I'm going to take a chopstick, because it has a point, but it's not a sharp point, because I see one part right here is not really pushed through well. So let me go ahead and open this up, and let me just push this through. I want to make sure it looks good. Let's do it on the other side. There we go. Just have to work it out a little. I see some threads poking through. So I'm going to take my little thread snips and start cutting all these little pieces that I have here. I see another little piece, so that came out very easy. Alright, so you can see right here this is my finished product. What I like to do is I like to turn it over. Oops, let me... This side seems to have a little problem going on here. Push it through nicely. Okay. Alright, turn it over on with the back side facing me, and then I'm going to press it because I want to give it a nice look, a nice finished look. I don't run the iron back and forth, I just place it onto the pouch and give it shots of steam. Go on to the front. And now we've just completed our pouch. You see how we were very lucky that this matched up. The seam matched up pretty nicely. This one didn't because this piece of fabric was a little bit wider. But it still looks very nice. So this first quilt as you go block that I showed you in part 1 is a 13.5 inch square. I am going to make a table runner that is 13.5 inches by 10, so I'm going to be cutting off about 3.5 inches. So what I've done is I've made sure that I've put it up to the 10-inch mark right here, and I'm going to cut it at the 0 mark, which is right here. So I've made my cut, and now I have a 3.5 inch by 13.5 inch long piece that I can probably make into 3 coasters if I wanted to. I'm just going to put it to the side. I'm going to see what I can do with this for a later date. Now I have my 13.5 inch by 10 inch rectangular table mat, and I'm going to be adding binding. And this is pre-made binding. I already put all the fabric together. So what we're going to do is we're going to start it. Give yourself about 2-inch leeway to where you start it right here. I'm going to start it on the long edge. Put my binding right here and give myself a 2-inch tail right here. I'm going to start pinning at the 2-inch mark. Right here. This is where I'm going to start sewing. Go over here. I'm going to try to make a really nice mitered edge. It should come out like this. Fold it up like this. Fold it like this, and then it'll go like this, and go all the way around. I will actually make a video on how to put binding on. If I do it on this video, it's going to make the video pretty long. So let me go ahead and put the binding on and then show you what this mat looks like after I'm done. And here we are with the completed table runner. I sewed on the binding all the way around, and I hand sewed it in the back. Kind of sloppy looking because I'm not real good at slip stitch, but then again, this is for my personal use, so it really didn't matter. Once again, here is the finished pouch that we made after we made the Quilt As You Go block. It has the label inside. We inserted the zipper and we put a tab. In the meantime, I completed this little pouch with the rectangular Quilt As You Go. Again, with my label inside, my inserted zipper, and my little tab. Thanks for watching part 1 and part 2. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. I'm Liz. This is EMO's Creative Studio. Happy quilting. Happy sewing. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.